God.
Thanks for joining me. Today we're checking out one of the France's most iconic Cold War fighters, the Dassault Mirage 2000C in the colors of Armée de l'Air, the French Air Force, or the 25LD Squadron. This particular aircraft represents the French Air Force deployment to Saudi Arabia during Operation Daguet in 1991. This was the France contribution to the Gulf War, and this bad boy was designed to be fast and agile, combining the proving delta wing design with advanced fly-by-wire technology, giving it outstanding performance and reliability. By the early 1990s, the Mirage 2000C had established itself as one of the Europe's leading fourth-generation fighter aircraft. During Operation Daguet, these Mirages flew from bases in Saudi Arabia, protecting coalition airspace and standing ready to intercept any potential threat. Although they weren't tasked with the strike missions that many air forces associated with the Gulf War, but their mission helped secure the skies and demonstrated France's commitment to the coalition effort. Having said that, in this video, we'll take an in-depth look at this remarkable aircraft, its design, capabilities, operational history, and the role it played during one of the most significant military campaigns of the modern era. So, whether you're a fan of military aviation, scale modeling, or aviation history, there is plenty to appreciate about this legendary French fighter. So sit back, relax, and let's find out the story of the Dassault Mirage 2000 and its service during Operation Daguet in 1991. Let's jump right in. So, from the Mirage 3 to Desert Storm, the birth and combat legacy of the Mirage 2000. So, when people think of a great fighter aircraft, names like the F 15 Eagle, F 16 Fighting Falcon, and MiG 29 often come to mind. Yet, one of the most important fighters of the Cold War and post Cold War era emerged not from the United States or the Soviet Union but from France. The Dassault Mirage 2000 was the product of decades of French aviation innovation, a determination to maintain military independence, and lessons learned from previous generations of combat aircraft. Its story did not begin in the 1970s when engineers started drawing the aircraft on drafting tables. Instead, its history starts with the rebirth of French aerospace industry following World War II. Now, to understand the origins of the Mirage family, We need to go back to the very beginning. So, at the end of the World War II, France faced a difficult reality. The country had been occupied during much of the war, and its aviation industry lagged behind those of the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union. French leaders understood that national security required a modern aerospace industry capable of producing indigenous military aircraft. One man would become central to this effort, Marcel Dassault, a brilliant aircraft designer and entrepreneur. Dassault rebuilt his company after the war and sought to place France at the forefront of military aviation. During the early jet age of the 1950s, military planners around the world were obsessed with speed. The Korean War had demonstrated the importance of jet fighters, and nations raced to build aircraft capable of reaching supersonic speeds. Dassault engineers experimented with various designs before embracing the delta wing, a triangular wing configuration that offered several advantages at high speeds, but delta wings provided excellent structural strength, large fuel capacity, and strong performance at supersonic velocities. The result was the Mirage 3. The Mirage 3, the aircraft that started it all. First flown in 1956, the Mirage 3 became one of the most successful European fighter aircraft ever built. It was capable of exceeding Mach 2, which was a remarkable achievement at the time. The Mirage 3 gained worldwide recognition during the 1967 Arab Israeli War. Flown by the Israeli Air Force, it established air superiority over opposing forces and proved the effectiveness of its design under real combat conditions. The Mirage 3 became a major export success and it was purchased by countries across Europe, South America, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. So for France, the Mirage 3 proved that the country could compete with American and the Soviet aircraft manufacturers. As time went on, no aircraft remained at the cutting edge forever, right? Aviation technology was evolving rapidly, and by the late 1960s and the early 1970s, military planners were already looking beyond the Mirage 3. But wait a minute, we can't ignore the Mirage F1. So the Mirage F1, it was basically a step forward and came in between, and it was only a temporary solution. Um, the Mirage 3's delta wing design excelled at high speed. As capable as it was, the Mirage 3 had limitations, particularly at lower speeds and during close in maneuvering. So, to address these issues, Dassault team developed the Mirage F1. Unlike previous Mirages, the F1 used a conventional swept wing design, which offered improved handling characteristics, greater operational flexibility, and overall better low altitude performance. The Mirage F1 entered service in 1973 and it became another export success. Ironically, Iraq would later become one of its operators, purchasing dozens of Mirage F1 fighters from France during the 1980s. Despite the success of the F1, French engineers were already studying the next generation of fighter technology because the Cold War changed. So, the 1970s represented a turning point in military aviation. The United States was introducing advanced fighters such as the McDonnell Douglas F 15 Eagle and later the General Dynamics F 16 Fighting Falcon. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union was developing the MiG 29 Fulcrum and Su 27 Flanker. In this case, France needed a fighter capable of surviving against these increasingly sophisticated fighters. Initially, France participated in discussions with several European nations regarding a common fighter aircraft project. However, disagreements over design priorities and operational requirements eventually caused France to withdraw. Rather than compromise its requirements, France chose to develop its own aircraft, and that decision would eventually lead to the Mirage 2000. Excuse me, folks, I have to take a quick water break. But, anyways, now the question is why France returned to the Delta wing design, right? Well, many observers expected Dassault to continue developing the conventional wing aircraft after the Mirage F1, but instead, engineers returned to the Delta wing concept. Incidentally, this was not a step backward for Dassault. Well, advances in computer technology had created a new possibilities. Traditional delta wing fighters often suffered from stability issue and handling limitations. However, the introduction of digital fly-by-wire systems changed everything. Fly-by-wire technology replaced many mechanical flight controls with computers, and these computers constantly adjust control surfaces and stabilize the aircraft. That said, engineers could now design aircraft that were intentionally aerodynamically unstable. The computer could handle stability while the pilot benefited from the extraordinary agility. Dassault realized that combining modern fly by wire technology with a refined delta wing could create a basically a highly maneuverable fighter with exceptional performance. The birth of the Mirage 2000 development formally began during the mid 1970s. The first prototype took to the skies on March 10th, 1978. From its very first flight, the aircraft immediately impressed test pilots. The aircraft was powered by SNECMA M53 turbofan engine. The Mirage 2000 could also exceed Mach 2 and climb rapidly to intercept enemy aircraft. Also, its digital flight control system made it far more agile than the earlier Mirage designs. The aircraft retained the sleek appearance of previous Mirages, but represented an entirely new generation of technology. Production aircraft entered French Air Force service in 1984. By the mid 1980s, the Mirage 2000 had become France's premier air defense fighter. Now, the road eventually led the Mirage to the Persian Gulf, marking the beginning of a new chapter in its operational history. So, while the Mirage 2000 was entering service, tensions were growing in the Middle East. Throughout the 1980s, Iraq fought a brutal 8-year war against Iran. During that period, Iraq purchased large quantities of military equipment from various countries, including France. Ironically, Iraqi pilots flew French built Mirage F1 fighters during the Iran Iraq War. After the war ended in 1988, Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein sought to expand his regional influence. So, on August 2nd, 1990, Iraqi forces invaded Kuwait. The invasion shocked the world. The United Nations condemned Iraq's actions, and a multinational coalition led by the United States began assembling forces in Saudi Arabia. France quickly joined the coalition. The French military deployment became known as a Operation Daguet. The name translates roughly to Brocadier. This operation basically showcased the capabilities of French air power during the Gulf War. So, France dispatched thousands of personnel in a substantial air contingent to the Gulf. French aircraft involved in the operation included Mirage 2000 C fighters, Sipicat Jaguar attack aircraft, Mirage F1, reconnaissance aircraft, transport aircraft, and tanker aircraft, basically creating a powerful combination of air superiority, strike capability, and long range support. One thing worth noting is that the Mirage 2000C wasn't the aircraft used for most ground target strikes. That role was primarily handled by the Sipicat Jaguar, whereas the Mirage 2000C was mainly used for air to air defense missions. So, for the Mirage 2000, this would become the first major wartime deployment. French commanders assigned the aircraft primarily to air defense and escort missions. This role was critical because coalition planners initially feared Iraq's air force might mount a serious challenge. At the start of the conflict, Iraq possessed one of the largest air forces in the region, including MiG 29s, MiG 25s, MiG 23s, Mirage F1s, and numerous other combat aircraft. So on January 17th, 1991, Operation Desert Storm began. Coalition aircraft launched a massive wave of attacks against Iraqi military targets. The opening campaign sought to destroy Iraq's air defense network, command infrastructure, and air force. French Mirage 2000s immediately began flying combat air patrol missions over Saudi Arabia and coalition operating areas. Their mission was simple but essential to prevent Iraqi aircraft from threatening coalition forces. The Mirage 2000 had everything it needed to dominate the interceptor role. The advanced radar, speed, and capable missile systems made it a highly effective air defense fighter. So, at this point, the raid was success. French pilots routinely patrolled designated sectors and escorted strike aircraft heading toward Iraqi targets. Now, what did the Mirage 2000 actually contribute? Well, the Mirage 2000's contribution is sometimes overlooked. The point I'm making here is that its success should not be measured only by dramatic air to air victories. For example, those achieved by aircraft like the American F 15 Eagle. However, measuring success only by kills misses the point, right? The aircraft contributed in several important ways, maintaining air superiority. One of the coalition's greatest strengths was total control of the skies. In fact, Mirage 2000s helped establish and maintain that control. Their presence forced Iraqi pilots to contend yet with another highly capable coalition fighter. Every Mirage 2000 on patrol increased pressure on the Iraqi Air Force and reduced its freedom of action. Another key role was escorting coalition strike aircraft packages. So many coalition strike aircraft carried out missions deep inside hostile territory, and these aircraft require protection. So Mirage 2000s escorted the strike formations while maintaining constant vigilance. They remained ready to engage any Iraqi aircraft that attempted to intercept them. The greatest success of air superiority fighters is often preventing battles from occurring in the first place. As coalition air dominance became overwhelming, Iraqi pilots increasingly avoided combat. Indeed, many Iraqi aircraft remained grounded while others fled to Iran. Thus, the Mirage 2000s played an important role in creating an air superiority environment that made this mission possible. Desert Storm demonstrated that the French aircraft could operate seamlessly alongside American, British, Saudi, and other coalition forces. the Mirage 2000 proved itself as a modern frontline fighter capable of participating in one of the most sophisticated air campaigns ever conducted. Although the Mirage 2000 did not become the symbol of the Desert Storm in the way, let's say, the F 117 Nighthawk or F 15 Eagle did, but the Desert Storm validated the aircraft's design. The fighter performed reliably in harsh desert conditions and demonstrated excellent operational readiness. French military planners gained valuable experience regarding coalition warfare, electronic warfare, precision guided weapons, and large scale air operations. The lessons learned during Desert Storm influenced later Mirage 2000 upgrades and contributed to the development of the Dassault Rafale. So, in conclusion, the Mirage 2000 was not born overnight. It was the result of a technological journey that began with France's determination to rebuild its aerospace industry after the World War II. Through the Mirage 3, Mirage 5, and Mirage F1, Dassault accumulated decades of experience before creating a fighter that combined traditional French design philosophy with revolutionary fly-by-wire technology. When Desert Storm erupted in 1991, the Mirage 2000 represented the pinnacle of French fighter development. While it did not achieve headline-grabbing aerial victories, however, its performance in the Gulf reinforced its reputation as capable and reliable fighter and secured its place as one of the most important aircraft in the history of the French Air Force. Now let's see what this model comes up with. So one of the first things you'll notice about the Hobbymaster HA1602 Mirage 2000C is how well it captures the sleek lines of Dassault's famous delta wing design, even though it's one of the Hobbymaster's earlier Mirage releases. The shape still looks excellent, clean fuselage and distinctive wing profile, all looking very convincing in 1/72nd scale. The desert camouflage worn by EC-25 during Operation Daguet in 1991 is a beautiful mosaic of sand, tan, and brown tones with sharp paint separation and subtle colors that really suits the aircraft. Incidentally, one of the most striking features of the Mirage 2000Cs deployed to Saudi Arabia was their distinctive desert camouflage. Unlike the familiar blue gray interceptors that guarded French skies, these aircraft were shades of sand and brown designed for the harsh Arabian environment. However, this paint scheme did not make them invisible to radar, but it reduced their visual signature while parked on exposed airfields. Next, the squadron markings and stencils are also nicely printed, right on point, giving the model a realistic appearance without looking overdone. The cockpit is fairly simple by today's standards, but it's still well executed for an older release, and the pilot figure is a nice option for anyone displaying the model in a flight posture. Underneath, the weapons fit perfectly clean and gives the Mirage a purposeful look, while the landing gear is sturdy enough to support the model's weight. However, this model does show some of the quirks. So, Hobbymaster was known for during its earlier production years. The most noticeable issue is the balance. With too much weight concentrated toward the rear, the model is notoriously tail heavy, which can cause the nose to sit slightly higher than it should, only when it's displayed on its landing gear. As you can see here, I've placed a tripod jack under the rear fuselage near the engine section to keep the model level. As soon as I remove that tripod jack, the nose tilts upward because, once again, the model is tail heavy. By the way, this jack stand is sold separately. This tripod support stand is intended for Mirage aircraft and other French fighter aircraft. It would have been nice touch if Hobbymaster had included one with the model, especially since it can't be displayed properly on its landing gear without additional support. Now, I will say it's not severe enough to ruin the model presentation. Fortunately, Hobbymaster improved the internal weight distribution on later Mirage releases, and I've heard some collectors have even added a small amount of weight inside the hollow nose cone to correct the balance, which it works. Anyway, the fit and finish are generally very good, although the removable parts can sometimes require a little patience to line up perfectly. And this was fairly common on Hobbymaster's early Air Power series models before the engineering became more refined. Even so, the panel lines remain crisp, the paint application is clean, and the model has a premium feel that's helped it age really well over the years. So, overall, this model is still a very enjoyable model, an important release for Mirage collectors. It represents a significant aircraft from Operation Daguet, and it has an attractive desert camouflage scheme, and it captures the elegant look of the Mirage 2000C extremely well. While the rear heavy balance is one of the better known flaws of Hobbymaster's early production runs, but in my humble opinion, it's a relatively minor issue compared to everything the model gets right. This model still looks fantastic in a display case and remains a worthwhile addition to any modern military aircraft collection. Folks, I've always loved the Mirage. It's such a sick looking aircraft, in my opinion. In any event, so the HA1602 actually comes with fairly accurate air defense loadout for French Mirage 2000C during Operation Daguet rather than heavy strike configuration. The accessories included with the model are two Mattress Super 530D medium range radar guided air to air missiles mounted under the fuselage, and two Matra Magic short range infrared guided missiles mounted on the outer wing pylons. Also, one center line external fuel tank, which was commonly carried to extend the Mirage's endurance during long combat air patrols over Saudi Arabia. One thing I want to point out here, I'm not really sure why they included the four BLU 107 Dorandale bombs. So, those were specifically designed for runway denial missions. And as we all know, this particular aircraft wasn't used in that role. It didn't perform that role. So, my guess is Hobbymaster wanted to complement the armament and give collectors more interesting loadout. In any case, I'm grateful the model is otherwise very accurate when it comes to the armament. So, bravo to Hobbymaster for paying attention to the details and giving this aircraft the correct loadout for its era and mission. With all that being said, I do have a quick confession here, folks. I'm not an expert when it comes to the European armaments. So if I got something wrong or missed a detail, feel free to correct me in the comments. But I'm glad to say the loadout is historically accurate for the most part. So during Operation Daguet, the French Mirage 2000Cs were primarily assigned to combat air patrol or CAP and escort duties rather than ground attack missions. Their job was to defend coalition aircraft and maintain air superiority. So they typically flew with combination of Super 530D and Magic 2 missiles along with the centerline fuel tank. They generally did not carry air to ground bombs during these missions because, as I've mentioned earlier, strike aircraft like a Sipicat Jaguar handled most of the air to ground work. Anywho, the only modification I made to this model was the centerline fuel tank. So I repainted it with Tamiya X32 titanium silver and added a little weathering to it, basically to give it a more realistic look. So the reason I did this because in some photos from Operation Daguet, few Mirage 2000Cs can be seen carrying centerline tanks that appear much more metallic or silver than the standard dark gray. Well, it's a small detail, but I think it makes the model look a little more authentic and closer to the real aircraft. So, in the end, this is one of those beautiful models where the story behind the paint scheme makes it even more special. My only real pet peeve with this release is the availability. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it's still available from some vendors. I highly doubt it. This model is pretty much unobtainium these days. But if you like it, good luck with that. Um, if you can find one and you don't mind spending a little extra, I definitely recommend adding it to your collection. I think you'll be very happy with it. It's one of those great Mirage releases, despite a few minor flaws, especially the weight balance issue toward the rear. Well, suffice to say, it's a very good model. I'm really glad to have this one in my collection and to share its story with you today. Folks, this was actually one of my earliest Mirage models. And if I recall correctly, I think I picked it up back in 2010 or 11. My goodness, time flies, right? It's been so many years that I honestly can't even remember the exact moment that I got it, but it's definitely been part of my collection for a very long time. And with that, it's time to wrap things up. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and like my content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to check out my other model reviews. You might find something interesting there as well. As always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next video.